Welcome. Today we're going to talk about how to turn clicks into contracts and master your online commercial real estate marketing. Today, about 80% of tenants and investors search online for commercial real estate, regardless of whether or not they're using a brokerage. So online presence is a must. Hi, I'm Leah Jones. I have over 20 years of commercial real estate marketing experience in companies like Westfield Shopping Centers and CBRE. I'm currently leading the property marketing strategy for both LoopNet and 10X here at CoStar.
Hi, I'm Carly Manning. I have 8 years of experience in residential and commercial real estate marketing. I started in multifamily marketing and leasing, and after joining CoStar, I helped develop the property marketing team alongside Leah.
And together, we have helped property brokers and owners market over 16,000 properties on LoopNet. Today, we're going to use that experience to focus in on 3 key areas that will have the most impact on successful online property marketing. First, we're going to talk about media. What's the importance of media on listings? Then Carly's going to go into depth about building a narrative that differentiates your property. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with leveraging the latest technology available today to help you in your marketing efforts. So, what's the importance of media on listings? To put it simply, it's probably the single most important component to generating interest in a property online. Think about your own experience buying online and how that impacts your decision. Would you buy a pair of shoes, a shirt, or even a home without a photograph? Our data tells us the same. Using images, videos, or 3D tours results in more time spent viewing your listing. Listings with photographs are viewed 261% longer than those without. And listings with 3D tours are viewed 405% longer than listings without. So that tells us having images, videos, tours, media is of utmost importance. How do you make your media work for you? You need to make sure that your images are high quality. And we'll talk a little bit more about high quality in a moment, but you want to make sure there are a variety of types of media to help tell the full story. Having just one picture probably won't tell the story that having a mixture of different types of photos and videos will. And it's worth mentioning that hiring a professional to help with your media could be the best money you spent marketing your property. Professionals can help you get the right angles, lighting, and help you present your building or property in the best light. And don't forget to write meaningful captions to describe the image and to boost SEO. Search engines do index media captions, so you want to ensure that you're telling that search engine what's in that picture and including things like addresses and keywords to help them make sense of what they're viewing. And finally, it makes sense to order the photographs like a building tour from the outside in to really create an immersive experience and help that person viewing the listing understand the property in full. An example of a tour would be approaching the building with the best exteriors first, moving in through the entrance, through the lobby, and then into common areas like cafes, fitness centers, and lounges. Then looking at parking lots and garages that are so important to those tenants. Looking at individual spaces that are available for lease or for sale as a condo, and aerials that help the viewer really understand the surrounding area, what's near the property, and perhaps what highways and access the property has. Let's take a look at some examples of effective media versus okay media. So really what's considered high quality? I think these photos speak for themselves. When you look at the 2 images, one of them evokes excitement and shows a really brilliant, bright building. Both pictures show the building in full, But you can see that the image that shows the red of the brick, the antique look of the light fixtures, that's a little more interesting than the dark, kind of shadowy image that you see. Take weather, for example. This used car dealership was captured in the rain. Looks a little sad, but then on a sunny day, it seems to be a little more welcoming and inviting. That's for visitors and for someone who might be looking to purchase this property. And finally, just showing off what lighting and angle can do really makes a difference. Showing the surrounding area in relation to this building really creates a sense of drama that you don't get in seeing that building head on. So again, since photography is absolutely essential and the first thing that's going to capture someone's attention when considering your property, really make sure that you've invested in the quality photographs to capture that attention. Now I'm going to hand it over to Carly to talk about building a narrative that helps to differentiate your property and stand out.
Thanks, Leah. As she mentioned, I will be talking about how writing a compelling narrative that is enticing to potential buyers and tenants can differentiate your property. Similar to the media that grabs people's attention right off the bat, once they click into the advertisement, that property narrative is going to be incredibly important. In our experience, it takes about 85 words or 500 characters to describe an opportunity. So that's how we define a complete narrative. And listings with a complete narrative receive 56% more clicks and are viewed 15% longer than those without. So what does that tell us? Including a narrative that explains the excellent opportunity your property presents increases the likelihood for leads and thus deals. The goal of this narrative is to tell the story of the opportunity in a way that is impactful to tenants and buyers. So how can we make it resonate with your audience? We want to understand what is important to them and how they make decisions. So we'll look at things like the deal type, asset type, and final decision maker. Let's start with the motivators of the decision maker and understanding those. For example, office lessees care about how the building will benefit employees and their overall productivity. They'll be looking at areas such as the layout, amenities, commutes, and location. On the flip side, retail tenants are really concerned about the surrounding consumers. So factors such as the demographics, traffic counts, nearby businesses, and surrounding demand generators are going to be important to them. As we all know, investors want a return on their investment. However, there is an investor for every level of risk or deal profile, from an opportunistic deal like a complete redevelopment to something a bit safer like an absolute triple net office building. So make sure to determine the property's deal profile and don't shy away from the risk level. Once you understand what the decision maker values, then you can determine the voice of your language and copy. For example, retail copy is a bit more flowery because those decisions can often be more emotional. Conversely, industrial decision makers are going to be quite analytical and looking for fact-based copy with building specs. Now that we are in the shoes of the decision maker, it's time to start to formulate the value proposition. To do that, we'll ask some investigative questions, and these are going to vary based on asset type, but the goal is to answer these three primary questions. What are you offering? Who is your target? And what value does your offering provide? Some examples of these could be, what do current tenants love about the building? Who is the ideal user? Or who does this shopping center service? After we've defined the value proposition, it's time to connect the dots and provide the why. So basically, why do these selling points matter? How will people use these amenities or do business here? This is how you really tell the story. And once you've written your copy, you want to ensure that it is error-free and professional to provide credibility. Okay, now that we've got a good understanding of how to craft these narratives, let's look at what's most important to the users of some of the top asset types. We talked a bit about office, and those decision makers are focused on how their employees are going to do business here, but also how they can attract and retain top talent. They'll be looking at the amenities in and around the building, but also the space configuration with things such as, is this all private offices or an open floor plan with cool breakout spaces for people to collaborate? And of course, we all love seamless commutes. For example, I really appreciate that it is easy to access the office from the expressway, but we also have beautiful river views, and that is definitely part of the value proposition. Onto retail, as we touched on briefly earlier, this is a bit more of an emotional decision where we can have flowery language, like the space being in a bustling city center or in a close-knit family-friendly community. Even though we are being a bit more flowery, we don't want to shy away from the analytics of the submarket. Demographics are a big selling point to retailers because that's the company's consumer base. Another thing we want to hit on are how to attract those consumers most easily, and that's through signage and accessibility. So being located on a major thoroughfare at a signalized intersection with high traffic counts is definitely beneficial. And of course, we want to check out the surrounding demand generators, basically what's bringing people to the area. Is the space located in a grocery anchored shopping center, or are there other beneficial co-tenancies? Or maybe it's located on a main retail corridor with thriving retail businesses. On to industrial, this is the one that can be a very analytical decision. Those users are really looking at, can I operate my business here? Basically, does this building have the features that I need? Decision makers care about the intended use and spec. Things like, is this built out for distribution, manufacturing? Is there cold storage? Or maybe there's some office space? Another important factor is the accessibility to distribution channels, such as interstates, freight ports, and airports, or maybe this warehouse is rail served. Moving on to our last three asset types here. With multifamily, we're going to be looking at demographics again because those folks are the residents. We're going to look at things like average household income, but also the percentage of residents that lease or own. Another big factor is the current performance, such as the existing occupancy and rental rates, which can tell us if there's any room for upside. As always, location is very important, and that answers the question of what is bringing and keeping residents here. Is the building in a thriving suburb, or maybe a college town, or at the heart of a central business district surrounded by employers? Land is going to be all about potential, answering the question of what is the development potential of this site? What could somebody build here? Maybe there's already approved plans, and we want to know, will the zoning allow for the desired development? We're also going to look at what's happening around the site. Are there new businesses, new developments, or even communities popping up? And lastly, we want to check out the current state, which answers the question of, am I going to have to work to get this site shovel ready, or is it already there and I can break ground? The last asset type we'll be looking at is hospitality. This one is incredibly popular in the auction realm right now. I'll just be touching on some of the top three factors here. There are definitely more. The biggest one is the current success. So RevPAR, or revenue per available room, is a big importance there, as well as the flagged. So what brand, if any, does this hotel operate under? Does it have solid management, or is there a value add opportunity here through the completion of a PIP? And of course, location again. And this answers the question of what is drawing guests to the area. Basically, why are people staying here? Are there a lot of attractions nearby, or is the hotel itself the attraction? So that wraps it up for how to write a narrative, define the value proposition, and speak to the decision makers for a potential opportunity. I'm going to pass it back to Leah to talk about how utilizing today's technology to advertise your property.
Thank you, Carly. Last but not least, we want to touch on technology. We're talking online advertising for commercial real estate, so technology is a given. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the most effective ways to leverage this technology. We've identified the top 4. Of course, there are more technology options out there. However, we think these 4 are having the greatest impact right now. I first want to talk about analytics. These are basically the gold mine of online advertising. With analytics, you can see information like visitors to a page, the number of clicks, and the time they spend on the page, and also collect leads. You want to make sure you are regularly viewing these analytics and responding accordingly. For example, if page visits or clicks aren't what you expected, you might want to experiment with switching out your lead image. What are people seeing first? Maybe it's not motivating them and there's a different aspect of the property that users would like to see. Or maybe you want to consider switching up the headline or narrative you're using to describe the property to reach a different audience. Always make sure you're responding to what your users are telling you. SEO is also very important. You need to be found in the search engines in order to generate traffic. Using property names, addresses, and keywords can help your searchers find you. What's a keyword? Carly gave some great examples. For example, with hospitality, you may want to use nearby demand drivers as keywords in that listing. Or with retail, you might want to leverage co-tenancy and use some names of other retailers that are located nearby. Digital advertising, and this is more in the paid arena, can be really helpful in generating traffic as well. Investing in SEM or search engine marketing, digital display ads, or a listing marketplace like LoopNet can greatly increase the chances of you reaching your target tenant or buyer. You may choose to put digital display ads on a real estate focused website or somewhere you know your target audience is searching. And then last but not least, I think this is the most common question we've been asked in the last 6 months to a year is how should you use AI in marketing commercial real estate? We say use with caution. It can be very helpful in writing about things like market areas and locations, but there are still so many limitations to using it to describe a specific property. Many times we find that the copy that ChatGPT generates about a property is way too vague in general and doesn't really uncover the differentiator for an individual property. We've seen instances of this in our day-to-day where it's obvious that a broker or an owner has used AI to write copy and it just isn't speaking to what's really the motivator for selling or leasing a property. Also, be sure not to copy and paste anything that you get from AI. A lot of times the copy just isn't relevant or has holes or even blanks that should be filled in. We've seen an unfortunate example of someone copying and pasting that was clearly meant to have been edited by the person generating that content that wasn't, which takes us back to one of our key points, which is always proofread, edit, and ensure that your copy is professionally written. So to sum things up, the 3 most impactful areas that we feel are important to marketing your listing online are quality media, quality narratives, and leveraging the latest technology. We really thank you for joining us today, and we hope you're able to use today's content to turn those clicks into contracts. Be sure to stay tuned for our next webinar and more content like this.